And we're live from Toronto, going worldwide. Hi, everybody. How you doing? It's so good to see everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces in the chat already. Hope everybody's doing well. We've got a very special guest. Anytime a perfumer comes on, it's always a special time. But this is a rare breed of perfumer, a special perfumer. All perfumers are special, but this one really takes it to special. He's got a specialty going on, which is very unique. Before we begin, if you are new here, please subscribe for more live streams and future comments or videos. Like the video. Also, let me remind you that I am releasing Bellam tomorrow. This is going live on lesabstrait.com, and you'll be able to find it in Le Bistro de la Butte for the European market. So this is an Oracy butter composed with Monsieur Master Perfumer Antoine Lee. So look for this. This will be ready and live tomorrow, inspired by healing, a spiritual healing. So I'm really grateful for this lesson and to be able to be part of this creation process. Now, let me bring on the Pasha, Sultan Pasha. Please send him your love. Tell him you're here. Let him know that you're here, you're watching, and you're supporting him. So let me bring on Sultan. Yay! An old friend of the channel. It's so good to see you again, Sultan. How are you?
I'm good. A bit hairless, but yes, good. I'm
Yeah, I
good.
was going to say, I really like what you've done with your hair.
Yeah, it was a radical Britney Spears moment for me.
It
Just
happens.
woke up. There you go. Happens. But yeah, this is something I do every decade, every 10 years. I just basically just get rid of the hair, just to give the hair a break and have a fresh start and everything else.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
yeah.
was gonna say you look a little bit different than the thumbnail, but that's okay. I do the same, and I usually shave my head only because people tell me not to, and I like to do things that I'm not supposed to, as long as I'm
Yeah,
not hurting anybody.
yeah, same here. Same here,
Okay, so rules for the live stream. Don't read the chat.
Okay.
It's just you and me here, two old friends talking about perfume. And like every guest, I like to start off by asking them, how is life treating you?
Life has been good, has been amazing, especially since I started this journey in olfaction, since I started going to perfumery. The funny thing is, just before this live interview today, I actually went to this area called Stratford in London, where my previous workplace used to be. I used to work in Barclays Bank, as a coordinator slash cashier. And after many years, I went to the branch today, and I was like, God Almighty, how much difference does a decade make? A decade ago, I was there struggling and toiling, uh, thinking, what is my purpose in life? Why has God put me on this earth? Is it just to count other people's money and serve them and take their abuse? And going back to your question, how life has been, as we say in Arabic, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. Praise to God in all conditions, and I couldn't be happier because what I'm doing now, I absolutely love and absolutely adore. It's something I'm hugely passionate about, and I put my soul into what I do, and uh, I am ever thankful that God has directed me in this direction, and cross my paths with people who have been so influential in my life, who have helped me, directed me, mentored me. So I'm ever grateful.
Mm. Do you do any other work outside of perfuming? Is this your main source of?
Yes, this is my main source of income, has been so since 2015. So 2015, I mean, I started this business, I started composing, I believe, 2013, 2014. And yeah, and at that time, I used to work. I used to do work in Barclays at that time. At the same time, do this business, and then eventually, I realized, you know what? I don't need to do this work in Barclays because this is what I'm passionate about, and dedicate. If I dedicate myself 100%, 101% into this, then it will be much more rewarding. And in fact, a very good friend of mine, you know him as well. It was actually Russian Adam, back in 2013, 2012, 2013. Back then, he was like, bro, don't do this job. It's killing you. It's killing you. It's killing your soul. It's killing your spirit. Go into perfumery, do perfumery, and have faith in God, and you'll see what happens.
So he
Alhamdulillah.
inspired and motivated you. But where did you find the belief that you would be okay by quitting your job and allowing for perfume to support you? How were you able to believe in that in yourself?
Really and truly, the people, my patrons.
Okay.
My patrons gave me the belief. You know, when I first started, there was possibly, just three or four people that believed in my work, or rather were exposed to my work. And then I believe in 2014, one of those people, whom I'm ever thankful to, I believe his name is David, or also known as Dorj. He opened a base notes page on my work, and then it just opened up a floodgate of interest in my work. And then it went exponentially, after Kafkaesque wrote about me, you know, and it went even more exponentially. It just went poof, like launch to the stratosphere when Luca Turin wrote about me. Who am I to write about? I'm nobody. And you know, it, basically, 2015, no, 2015 and 2016, I went to Milan for the very first time, to Essence, and with me was, my close friend, my best friend, and also my one of my biggest mentors, Nathan. He calls himself Nathan Vagabond. Don't ask me why. And me and him went to Milan, went to Essence for the first time. I was overwhelmed by the amount of companies that were there, the amount of products that were there, and I was standing on the Nishane stand with Nathan, and this big fellow, really tall fellow, quite old, you know, walked in, and he goes, samples. So you got any samples? Opens the bag, looks away, and the next thing I see is everybody in Nishane hustling and bustling, like really, like suddenly I see them turn nervous, and they put piles of these samples inside of this bag, and then he walks away. And next thing I know is I didn't recognize it was Luca Turin. And then next thing I know is they start talking about Tania Sanchez, and I'm like Nathan and Murat as well, the one of the owners of Nishane. Why are you guys talking about Tania Sanchez? Because that's Luca Turin. I'm like, no way! Shit! Sorry, forgive my language. I dropped everything. Before I dropped out everything, I pulled out one of my sample envelopes, ran up to him and nervously tapped him on his shoulder. I said, and he turned around and he said, "Yes," in a quite a posh American accent voice. I was like, "Sir, uh, I know you. I read your books. I love your books. I love what you do. Um, I'm yeah. Can I just hand you my samples?" Uh, oh, this is very interesting. Looks very yeah, one of these. Um, he sorry, the it just got cut there for a second. Looks very Count of Monte Cristo. And then he starts talking about lavender fragrances and how the industry he can't seem to find any good lavender fragrances around. And then, after a good 5 minute chat with me and Nathan, he then walks away. 2 weeks goes by, I'm back in London, and then I get all these phone calls and all these messages and emails saying, Sultan, from my customers, from my patrons, saying, Sultan, congratulations, Luca Turin has dedicated a whole page to you on his blog. I'm like, what? No way. Lo and behold, there it was, you know, Luca Turin talking about me. He wrote about me and he wrote about one of my fragrances, gave it 4 stars, 4 out of 5 stars, Tabac Grand. And I was just blown away. I will never forget that day. I was crying. And the first thing I did was I went down to prostration. Islamically, as a Muslim, whenever something good happens, you're meant to prostrate, go down the floor, and thank God Almighty for anything that good. So at that time, I remember I went down prostrated and I was crying my eyes out. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. It's just you and
It
me
just,
here.
it just brought back that amazing memory. And then, yes, it just went. Phew, people, it just, yeah,
I
it went absolutely amazing.
I can see your passion. I can see how much you have a love for what you do. How important is it for you to be seen for your work? Like the way you just described being noticed by Luca Turin, getting a 4 out of 5, having all these people contact you. Is it important for you to be recognized for the work you put out into the world?
Yes, of course. I mean, the thing about me is I have a very strong ethos, and my ethos is, and this is one of the reasons why interviews with me is quite rare. Even, if you were to go onto my Facebook, what do you call it? The SPA group, Sultan Pasha Attars group, you'll see that I don't heavily promote anything. You know, um, I much rather let the product, let my work do the talking more than me. So my ethos is let the art do all the talk, whilst our artist stays quiet. That's always been my ethos. And lo and behold, over the years, my patrons, my lovely, I love them all wholeheartedly. They are the ones who have spread the word. You know, of course, there has, my heart, my gratitude goes to people like Kafkaes, people like Luca Turin, Michelin Cayman from Caflabon. Is it Saflabon or Caflabon? I think it's, how do you pronounce it? Caflabon?
I
Is it
think it's Saflabron. That's the way I've
Saflabon?
heard it pronounced, but it doesn't
Yeah,
really matter.
yeah, my French pronunciation is yeah,
As good as
rubbish.
mine.
So yeah, so I'd rather let my work do all the talk, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
absolute sense.
and if I get to, uh, if I get invited to talk about my work, yes, I will do so. But I will never. It's not in my ethos to heavily push myself you know, because to me, the way I think, um, my work are like my children, my two beautiful daughters. You know, they mean the whole world to me. So same thing in my work. You know, I am nothing. I'm in the background. You know, so I'd rather let my work do all the talk, or rather my two beautiful daughters do all the talk, which they do a lot. I love them for it.
Mm,
You know.
yeah. So when we get a guest on here, we never really know what the personalities are like. Is there any questions that you don't like being asked during an interview?
Personal ones. You know,
Personal ones.
yeah, of course, because at the end of the day, when it comes to, I rather, talk about, I'm a very private person. So, I'd rather let it be about the work, um, or, in terms of inspiration, in terms of thoughts, rather than being asked, you know, questions that shouldn't be asked. Uh, that has no business being asked, if that makes sense.
It definitely makes sense, right? So you like to separate your personal life from your passion and your trade. Now, is there ever been a question that you've wanted to be asked during an interview but have never been so? Is there
That's a
something
very
that you want the world to know that you've never been asked?
that's a very good question. I've never thought about that. That is a really unique question. And to be honest, because no, I don't know. I'll be honest. You know, if I don't know, or rather, if I can't answer something because I'm quite naive about it, I'll put my hand up. In this instance, I don't know how to answer this question.
That's fine. That's fine. So I've been smelling some of your work. You've sent me samples of your attars. I've got samples of, I guess these are spray perfumes. They're all
Yes.
very lovely. And what I notice, there is a darkness to your perfumes. They are deep, they're rich, they're complex. Tell us a little bit of where this darkness comes from. Why does the Sultan want to express a darker facet and element in his craft, opposed to something fresh, clean, light, airy?
Um, I would say, in terms of darkness, it is the best way I could describe it is, if you how do you know light without any darkness? You know, how can you appreciate light without any darkness?
Right.
So
There.
you need darkness to appreciate the light even more. I'm a firm believer in, the whole yin and yang concept. You know, the fact that you need a little bit of darkness to appreciate the light, and same thing with, vice versa. Even if I create an intensely dark composition, there has to be some sort of light in there,
Right.
or else it simply won't work. It will be a very dull, composition. So for me, yes, of course, at the end of the day, there are very, light compositions out there in the market that are redundant of any darkness. Those are very, very clean. However, me personally, I find them quite, monochromatic, if that makes sense, quite dull. Um, it lacks a drama. So, when I'm composing, I compose due to my own need, if that makes sense. I'm not following any trend, I'm not following anyone's suggestion. because I believe that if you want to be true to the work, if you want to be true to the art, to the craft, you have to put your soul into the work. You have to put your own. You can't have any other interference in there. Yes, you could have creative input, from others. Let's say, for example, if I'm doing a collaborative work, let's say, for example, Zoologist, Victor would give me a mood board. This is how he wants his composition. It has to have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Fine. But the beauty of that is he still wants me to be me when I'm creating the composition. So, going back to your question about that darkness, it is me. It is me because in me, I suffer from, the community already knows this, that I suffer quite a lot from depression and basically a form of bipolar. So my mood is always going like that. So for me, when I'm composing, it's a way for me to calm the inner turmoil, calm these storms, to express. Uh, it is a media to express myself completely, how I'm feeling at that moment, or my desire at that moment. It's different parts of my internal facets.
So do you feel like, in a sense, you are expressing your mood into these perfumes and
Yes.
putting out into the world the types of perfumes that you yourself would want to wear?
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much. It's like this. I could be a very happy person, very smiling, very, very jovial, you know, outwards. But internally, there still will be like, uh-oh, Sultan, you're smiling too much. You're being too happy. Chill out, relax, calm down. Yeah, just remember, life is not all, always about smelling roses. There, yeah, please.
But who's judging you from being happy? Who do you see as the judge of your happiness? Yourself.
Me,
So you don't
me.
allow yourself to be happy.
I say I don't allow, I'd rather be, because I know myself, sometimes I can be extremely happy, or sometimes I can be extremely sad. Again, it's about the yin and yang. There has to be a balance. It can't be too much. Because of my condition, the bipolar condition, things can go into extremes.
Mm,
So, therefore, it's a way of myself to keep things balanced, to realize, Sultan, yeah, all right, fine, you're happy, but chill, calm, relax. Okay, let's say, for example, if I'm, feeling sad and feeling down, I'll be like, again, I'll go into introversion, being introspective, and think, it's okay. You got, there's a lot of light around you. There's a lot of positivity around you. I know all you're feeling right now is darkness. It's okay. You got beautiful children, two beautiful daughters. You have created some amazing compositions which people love. People love you for. You have some amazing materials around you, amazing compositions which you can smell, which will cheer yourself up with. You can, at least be grateful that, okay, you may be feeling down right now, but at least be grateful you're not working at that god awful bank that you used to, where you had to face all these people's abuse, you
right.
know. So it's all about balance.
I want to thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that with us, because I think it does take a lot of courage to open up and share those feelings. And I think the majority of society does face those ups and downs, and you're probably not alone there. Many people
Hmm.
are dealing with ups and downs, but do you think that, with as low as your downs, you feel into those lows, they make your ups even better, or you're able to celebrate feeling
Yes,
good
of
and just
course.
be grateful for every moment, including those downs?
Of course, because when you are, I mean, there, a long time ago, a very good friend who is no longer alive once told me, Sultan, always remember this: the closer you are to death, the more you grasp life, the more you appreciate life. And again, if you look into that, if you realize, if you think about it more, you realize, right, okay, when you go through this darkness, when you go into the depths, you appreciate rising up again and taking this breath of fresh air and all this light around you. But keep it in balance. You have to
Yeah.
keep it in balance.
I think death is a part of life, and after death, it's not the end of life. There has to be something greater. But let's move on. Let's carry on. I want to ask you, and I'm not sure if you've talked about this in other interviews. I didn't want to watch other interviews specifically for I wanted this to be unique on my own terms. But tell us a little bit, how did you get into perfuming? Are you self-taught? Did you have mentors? Did you take courses? How did you get into this rabbit hole?
Ooh, okay. Um, so I have always been passionate about chemistry and also biology, but more chemistry. So since a very young age, I've always been tinkering, mixing potions. Never realized that I'll be a perfumer ever. And I studied biochemistry, to a degree level, and then straight after, I went into working for Barclays to support, to support my family.
So Barclays is a
And
bank.
yeah, correct. And then eventually, um, what happened was, after this was back in 2000, actually before, even before that, um, I realized that when I used to go to work, the only way I could find a bit of peace would be to take little bottles with me, little bottles of little potions, you know. But eventually, I realized, you know what? I want to try and see. I've always loved perfumes, you know, um, and I've always wanted to see if I could make a perfume. Um, and when I used to work in Barclays, with the little money that I had, I would buy, essential oils. Let's say vetivers, Javanese vetiver, bourbon vetiver, and then I realized, hold on, the Javanese vetiver smells really, really smoky, almost smells like Marmite, and then the bourbon vetiver smells so smooth and nutty. Why is that? And then, and I'll bring just these bottles with me to work. So imagine I'm working on the till with 4 or 5 bottles in front of me, and people are going, "This man is nuts. This boy is nuts." However, it helped me work. It helped me survive counting money endlessly, other people's money endlessly for 8 hours a day. I remember one time, one of my assistant branch managers pulled me over and said, "Sultan, do you think it's professional for you to bring those bottles with you?" I said, "Look, has it affected my performance? No. Has my performance become better? Yes. So what's the harm? Am I doing any harm? No. Okay." So I carried on. And then one day by accident, by accident, I spilt something. I think it was valerian root. Yeah, and oh God Almighty, I started smelling like socks, cheesy socks, and my colleagues and my branch manager was not pleased with me. So then I had to stop bringing in these vials, but eventually I started bringing them again. So anyway, the reason why I'm saying about this is because in during that time, there was I was experimenting, you know, and one of my favorite flowers is rose. I've always wanted to know how to make a rose fragrance. So I said to myself, okay, let me see what it takes to create rose. And then I remember researching to rose, and then I realized, oh my God, there's so many different components to create a rose. For alcohol, rose oxide, the muscones, list carries on, geranium, it just list carries on. And I remember this was 2010 or 2011. I bought, you know, uh, little samples from Perfume Apprentice, the US website called Perfume Apprentice. And I received about 20 of these tiny vials, basically this size, full of these molecules. And I remember when I opened each one up, I was like, oh, God almighty, how the hell? This does not smell like rose. So I said, forget it. I got a beaker, poured all of them in there in one go to see if I could create a rose. Nope, it smelled absolutely terrible. I can't describe the smell. It was absolutely disgusting. And at that point, I gave up. This was 2010. Then eventually, 2011, this was in the winter, I was diagnosed, or rather misdiagnosed, with Crohn's disease. And because of that, I was prescribed with immunosuppressants and heavy doses of antibiotics for about a whole year. And I remember that was one of the darkest moments in my life, because when I was taking the azathioprine and the 6-MP, 6-methylpurine, which is the immunosuppressant, oh man, I just felt like death every day. I was wretched, really, really wretched. And then eventually, this was August 2012. By that time, I became so sick. I went into septic shock. And then when I recovered, I said, okay, this can't be right. I'm having septic shock, you know, whilst I'm taking all these meds. What the hell is going on? Let me see if I do have Crohn's disease. So then this was August, September, 2012, I booked an appointment with a specialist who only specializes in Crohn's disease. And when he put all the tests, internal and external, I had a couple of gastroscopies and colonoscopies. Ugh. He then concluded, Sultan, you don't have Crohn's disease. All you have is irritable bowel syndrome. And I was like, what the hell? Why the hell did I do this for a whole year? Why the hell did I take all these meds? Why the hell did I take these immunosuppressants that used to make me feel sick? And the thing is, when I was taking those immunosuppressants and the antibiotics, my sense of smell and my taste became so sharp. Taste of food and the smell of anything used to make me feel sick, wretched, like absolutely wretched. Then the specialist told me, yeah, stop all these meds. This was September. About a month later, so after I stopped the meds, I realized, after a month, my sense of smell, my taste normalized, and I was enjoying food for the first time again. It was felt lovely, and I was enjoying perfumes again. Now, this is the weird thing. I remember I wore a drop of Tribute, Amouage Tribute. I don't know if you know Amouage Tribute. Yep, the attar.
I've
Of
not
course, you know.
smelled it, but
Hello.
yeah.
I wore a drop of Amouage Tribute on my skin, and I want to smell it. And when I smelt it, it felt different. The composition hasn't changed, but the way
You
I
changed.
was, I have changed. The way I was smelling it changed. When I was smelling it, I wasn't appreciating. I wasn't appreciating it as a composition. Suddenly, all these memories of that accident that I made, all those about 2 years back, 2011, in that beaker, those individual vials. I realized, hold on, I can smell the rose oxide. Hold on, I can smell the phenylethyl alcohol. Hold on, I can smell the Javanese vetiver. That's where the smell of the smoke and the intense smoke and tobacco note in tribute comes from the vetiver. And then I said, "Whoa, this is strange. This is weird. Okay, let me try again. See what I can do." Again, I ordered this huge bunch of stuff, little samples from Perfume Apprentice. I started experimenting. And also this time around, I said to myself, no, listen, when it comes to creating perfumes, it's like cooking. Everything has to be in fine balance. Everything has to be fine-tuned. And I remember I added some of these, phenyl alcohol and rose oxide, and also uh, some rose absolute to some Javanese vetiver, and I created a basically a smoky rose vetiver composition, and I loved it. I fell in love with it. I was like, okay, right, let's try something else now. Let's try making a incense composition. So then I started experimenting with labdanum, and I realized how much I love labdanum. And then I realized, hold on, there's labdanum, there's cistus, all those from the same plant. It's a different process. Wow, one is very different from the other. But I realized that when I was smelling each new material, I was remembering the smell, you know. So at that point, I realized that I need to expose myself to as many new materials as possible, because I have realized that I've got the knack to remember the scent, the smell of each one of those materials, and also the difference. And that is what literally started the journey.
It's to bank the memory of each scent of each material.
Bingo. It's not about having a good nose necessarily. No, it's about having the a good memory basically. If you're passionate about something, you remember it really, really well, you know? And I
Wow.
realized, yeah, I'm very passionate about remembering the smell of each one of these materials, each one of these molecules, And also I realized that I'm passionate about what A plus B creates, or A plus B plus C creates. And then, yeah, it's almost that, a lot of people ask me, Sultan, I want to get into perfumery. Can you teach me? I'm like, really, it's not up to me, it's up to you. First of all, please do me a favor before you approach me. Try to learn about perfumery just like a toddler, learns about learns their first letters, their first words. What does a toddler do? A toddler learns the words first. So apple, or orange. They learn the individual words. So learn the individual words first, then learn the alphabets,
Each letter.
each letter. Now, so then they'll be like, hold on, but what does that mean? I said, okay, in terms of each word, learn about the different rows, Rose is a word. Learn the different roses. Learn about different jasmines. Learn about different vetivers. Eventually, once you learn those, try to learn each letter. What are the letters? Letters are the molecules that takes to create each one of those words. You know, so for example, in a rose, you know, there are possibly about 20 to 30 different molecules that is needed to create rose, if not more. You know, so there's a lot of letters that you need to learn.
So it sounds like a case of the more time you spend, learning and smelling, eventually it's got to click in a way that you're going to understand it. Now, in your journey, did you have anyone that you looked up to, that mentored you, that shared tricks or tips, or just like you're doing here for us now, or to any young perfumer that's looking to advance their career? Who did you look up to, and who kind of held your hand early on? Or is this something that you were able to do all on your own?
I'll be very honest. You know, in terms of teaching me, it's been pretty much a lone journey, you know. However, there have been a number of people who have crossed my path, who have given me inspiration and given me direction to learn more. Now, going back to what I said about the toddler, learning about the words first and then learning the letters, eventually you will realize that you can string the words together to create a sentence. And once you create a sentence, eventually you realize that, wow, I can now line up these sentences to create a paragraph. And then eventually you realize you can create a whole story, a whole bit of poetry, you know? So for me, it has been pretty much learning as many letters as possible over the years. And once I learn these letters and remember those letters, I'll be, let's say, for example, getting a book. This to me is a book, you know? So when I wear this composition, yes, I'm enjoying the composition, but I'm also at the same time, I'm reading it. Because I have a bank, a library of molecules in my head, molecules, materials, in my head. So when I'm smelling this, I'll be like, oh, okay. So this is how this molecule was used, or this is how, this accord has been created and then balanced together. So, really and truly, the things that I have always looked up to are the perfumes that are in my collection. So that's first. And secondly, of course, back in 2012, 2013, after the whole Crohn's fiasco, was when I met Russian Adam, and Adam and me, I love him to bits, to me, he's family. Adam and me started our journey, I would say, together. He was more focused on the ouds, and I was more focused in terms of composing overall. So, but at the same time, we had a passion for rare materials. When I say rare materials, materials such as deer musk, ambergris, castoreum, civet, stuff that no normal person can get their hands on. So with the little money that I had and that Adam had, we'll get these stuff from, little attars from Saudi Arabia or from the Middle East, basically. And he'll be like, "Oh, Sultan," there'll be times where, bro, I got this stuff from Abdul Samad al-Quraishi from Saudi, come smell this. So I'll go over to his place, stay there till about 4 a.m. in the morning, and I'll be smelling them. It'll be like, oh yeah, this is deer musk. And then I'll be like, dude, this does not smell like deer. I mean, at that time, I didn't know what real deer musk smelled like. I'll be like, dude, this can't be real because I can smell there's something washing powdery at the background. It can't. There's no way washing powder. The smell of washing powder is natural. He goes, yeah, but so and so said this is real. I said, so what? Have a cynical mind. Always have a cynical mind. Unless you have the actual, raw material, the actual pod in front of you, then we can say if this is real or not. So eventually, I remember he went back to Russia. He came back about a few weeks later, and he brought back an actual pod, and it blew my mind. It blew his mind as well, and we realized all these vials that we had of so-called musk was full of rubbish. It was full of crap. Forgive my language. And we realized what real deer musk smelt like, and that was a baseline for me and him. And then next thing was ambergris. And again, ambergris was extortionately expensive. So we'll be buying these again vials from so-called reputable suppliers, thinking these are ambergris, and then again, me and him came to the conclusion, you know what? Instead of wasting money on these so-called oils of ambergris, why don't we buy a small lump, buy a small bit for a couple of $100? We did that. We received some actual ambergris, and we realized again, this was full of rubbish. This is, this actual lump is a real ambergris. This is what ambergris smells like. Right. So this is, we went through that journey. Me and him went through that journey, and both of us, I remember, would argue till the late hours of night about whether this is real ambergris or this is real musk, and until finally and conclusively, once we had the materials in our hand, then we realized, this is what real ambergris smells like. This is what real civet smells like. This is what real castoreum smells like. This is what real deer musk smells like. Now our soul can rest. Let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys were living your passion and just putting your whole lives into everything that you do. I am in Sultan SPP #1. Let us know for the chat. Let us know your scent of the day in the comments. Let us know your favorite Sultan Pasha perfume. And I can definitely see the darkness in this perfume. I get what I would perceive as deer musk. It's leathery. There's probably some oud in here. Smoky, a little bit salty, which I like. I like saltiness. Tell us about your perfume.
So the spray compositions I sent you, there is 5 of them that I sent you. The 5 are the 4 of them are the spray. 4 of them are the 4 sprays that I'll be, God willing, releasing in 2023. I was planning to release them much earlier. Aim was August, September this year, but however, I've been having some problems with regards to the package design. I just want to get everything perfect. Once everything is perfect, we will be releasing the sprays in the first quarter of 2023, inshallah. Now, out of the 4 compositions, because I didn't want to release the names yet, I've put them down as 1, 2, 3, 4. The first one that you smelt, #1, is based around osmanthus. I wanted to create a very realistic, a hyper-realistic osmanthus composition, because I love osmanthus, and B, I realized that there's nothing in the market that smells like osmanthus, real osmanthus. So this is pretty much an osmanthus soliflor, and yeah, basically with this composition, I'm trying to explore all the different facets of osmanthus, because osmanthus, not only is it fruity, it also has got this leather, this dark leather quality to it. Also, this quality of tobacco and black tea. So I want to explore all those facets.
Okay. Do you want to tell us about any of the others? So
Of
there's
course. So number two, I hope you will enjoy as well. Number two is based around it goes back to my first meeting of Luca Turin. Luca Turin, he said he wanted it's just a shame that there is no lavender fragrances. So this is a lavender-based composition, and it is based around these two compositions, or rather three compositions, that I have in my collection. And these three compositions are discontinued and very, very old. One of them is over 100 years old. Is by Paul Poiret. Yeah, I don't know if there was a brand called Paul Poiret. He also created rosin perfumes, and the composition is called Moment Supreme. However, there was also Moment Supreme by Jean Pateau, but it's a totally different composition, totally different. And also, I tried to base number two on this base that I found from Firmenich, and I've got literally about 10 kilos of it in my other room. If you wait 1 minute, I can show you. Can you wait 1 minute?
yeah. Take your time. We
I'll be
got all
back.
the time in the world.
I'll be back. One
Many,
second.
many of our viewers are at work getting paid to watch this live stream. So
Right, I'm bringing them over.
let us know your
Uh,
scent of the day.
da, 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 da.
I've
As
also
long
got
as I
Sultan's
hope I don't.
samples of his attars here, and I haven't dug into these just because I want him to tell us about these, how to apply them. They're really small. These things are really delicate, and I don't think I've ever really worn an attar before.
So, all right. The first one I was telling you about, the Paul Poiret, was this one here. So this is over 100 years old. Okay. So there is this.
I'm
So
gonna
number
blow you
two,
up.
number two is based around this composition. Well, around these three compositions, but they all, to my nose, and also through GC analysis, I found out that it both this one and this one, which is Fougère Royale,
Okay.
the original Fougère Royale,
Wow.
contains this base here. Sorry, don't mind this. I put a syringe up there because the cork, I had to. That's the only
Where
way. So,
exactly are you applying that syringe afterward? Where are you injecting that?
oh no, 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 nowhere. This. So what I usually do is I suck it up on the syringe and then place them in here, just to smell away and enjoy. Now, this in no way is used in any of my compositions. Just to mention that it is just for reference, just for me to learn from and for me to enjoy it. This is so amazing, so beautiful. So yeah, I wanted to create number two around these three compositions as a reference, whereby there, is a fougere / amber composition, lots of lavender at the top.
I can get that.
Yeah, lots of lavender at the top, and then in the middle there is lots of amber, lots of very warm amber, and in the base you have oak moss. Now, in the original Fougere Royale, in all three of these that I showed you, there is a very high amount of coumarin. Now, coumarin is heavily restricted, of course, so I had to work around that and make sure, of course, that the composition is 100% IFRA compliant. So I had to use replaces of coumarin, and then lo and behold, number two has been created. So the whole idea for me, when I smell, be it Fougere Royale or Moment Supreme by Paul Poiret, or this base, it really reminds me of being in Provence, in the middle of May or July, hot sun above you, and you're in a field of lavender. You could smell the lavender, you could smell the hot earth, sun-baked earth. It just is a very joyous, relaxing composition.
Okay, what about number three? I think number three is my favorite. Can you tell us? And it's because I get a big sense of orris in here. Iris, dry, leathery, moody iris, powdery,
Mm-hmm. With
contemplative.
number three is a chypre composition. Lots of oak moss, but with the oak moss, again, I had to make it, of course, compliant. And lots of iris, orris butter, and orris essential oil. Just wanted to create a really, chypre is one of my favorite genres in perfumery. I just wanted to create a really bombastic, chypre composition.
Gorgeous.
Thank you.
Really beautiful.
Thank you very much. Now I'm really, with the third one, it was a pain to make. Pain because it's so bloody expensive. And number two was it was so difficult to get the balance right. Because with a lot of my compositions, it is all about a fine balancing act. I'm a big fan of Guerlain. And what Guerlain does, especially in the more premium fragrances, they try to balance about six, let's say minimum six different accords together, to create a composition. So I try to do the same thing with this one here. Also with the number two.
Okay, lovely. And I got to say, you know what? And I don't want to discount whatever you're going through, but I really see how you have put yourself and your health and kind of your mindset and where you are, that darkness into these perfumes. And I think that is where the beauty comes from. You're expressing yourself in your fragrances, which makes them really unique and different. Like, there's not too many fragrances or brands that are doing what you're doing. I can see that you're doing something not the same, but more in the veins of, like you said, your friend Russian Adam. So they're really beautiful. I love the
Thank you.
darkness that comes through these, and the representation of you in these fragrances. But
Thank you. I mean, going back to what you said, in the very beginning of the today, um, about society, society dealing with mental health. One of the primary reasons why I talk very openly about what I go through internally is because I believe such things, such a subject shouldn't be internalized, if that makes sense. Society needs to know more and learn more and accept more that there are people out there that do go through these, be it in my case, mood swings, and that it's okay to talk about it. You know, it is okay to talk about it, and then you get some positivity from it. Because if I feel that if I didn't talk about it, then I wouldn't have as much people around me uh, who have supported me creatively, if that makes sense.
It does.
So, so for example, I could be, when I'm talking about such things, I will have, my good friend Nathan, or I will have another good friend of mine, her name is Sylvia, who lives in Spain, or there are a lot more um, who would tell me, Sultan, have a look at this art piece by Van Gogh, or Sultan, have a smell of this perfume. Let us know what you think. Or Sultan, listen to this beautiful piece of music. Let us know what you think. Let's Maybe it will inspire you. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So it helps. It helps me. It helps me a lot.
I think
By being open about it.
a lot of the great artists from yesteryear, from the past, have suffered from something, and their art, their craft is a representation of those feelings. You look at, Kurt Cobain or Hemingway or Plath, or they're just expressing what it is they're feeling in that moment. And even with my brand, I've just recently launched a perfume brand, and for inspiration, I have gone inside. I know a lot of people want to express um, coffee and donuts in their.
I need to smell those. I was dying to smell those because I'm a big fan of Antoine Lee. I'm a
Thank
huge
you,
fan.
and I'd be happy to send you some. But some people find inspiration in coffee and donuts, and that's great. If that's your thing, or some people find inspiration in the sunset, or going for a walk in nature, and it's all beautiful. But I find my greatest inspiration in going inside, and what is the body feeling, and expressing that. So my first perfume was inspired by a heartbreak, which I found to be the most profound feeling that I have ever experienced in my life. There's just nothing like a heartbreak. It was devastatingly beautiful. As painful as it was, and as weird as that sounds, I really cherished that time in my life because it taught me more about myself than any other experience in my life, more than any other lesson in school, or because it was a natural feeling. It wasn't a social construct. It is a feeling that God has given to me. So I want to ask, when you're creating, where do you look for inspiration? Where do you go? What place?
Just like you, I become introverted. I rather go inside and look within, because that's where the truth lies. And that is the best way I'll be able to express myself. Um, what I can't say through words or any other medium, I will express through the work that I do. Um, and that is the only way to do so. Otherwise, it I will feel that this work does not deserve my name, doesn't deserve any more thought, if that makes sense. So, for example, when I created Sacred Scarab, you know, I went within, and I've always been hugely passionate about ancient Egypt. Hugely passionate about Tutankhamun, and when his tomb was discovered. And when Victor gave me the brief to create Sacred Scarab, I was overjoyed. That let me go within myself and get that and fulfill that childhood desire, that childhood dream of studying ancient Egypt, studying the smells of ancient Egypt. It was an amazing journey for me, amazing process for me. So, for example, when I was given the brief for Sacred Scarab, I said to myself, that's cool. I'm going to immerse myself totally in terms of ancient Egypt. I'll try to learn about the scents, the compositions that ancient Egypt, because ancient Egypt was famous for their incense, famous for their perfumes. So I said, I'm going to immerse myself in terms of what was used to make their fragrance, to make their compositions, to make their incense, to what was used during mummification, for example. I loved learning all of that. Why? Because inside of me, there's this kid, there's this child. You know, when he first heard about Tutankhamun when he was about 13 years old, you know, he wanted to learn more, but he couldn't because he was limited. Now he can learn. He can learn, and he could let the world learn if a bit more, but from the child's eyes.
Mm, yeah. So let's talk about Sacred Scarab. How
Mhm.
how did you and Victor connect? Did you reach out to Victor? Did he call on you? How did this all begin?
Victor, Victor connected with me um, a while back. I believe 2017, 2018. So there was a lot of to and fro, to and fro. But eventually, 2019 was when we finalized and we decided, yes, we will do a composition together. Okay. But which one we didn't know, you know. And, you know, one night me and him were talking, and he realized that I'm very passionate about ancient Egypt. So he was like, let's do something based around ancient Egypt. What animal can we use? There's so many animals. You know, in terms of ancient Egypt, you know, we've got with the ancient Egyptian theme. You got the cats, you got hippos, you got scarabs. I said, I'll take the scarab.
Like that, the Scarab was born.
Just like that. I was like, I'll take the scarab. He was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, why? And then he was like, why, what's scarab? I'm like, dude, the scarab rolls a bowl of dung, a bowl of poo. How zoologist is that? And then he was like, okay.
Okay.
Okay, if you have to. You know how he says, okay, okay, if you have to. I just went from there. And then he gave me the brief, you know, the mood board, and I was like, I can do this.
I got it. Yeah. Yeah, you know, Victor is very easygoing, and I don't think it takes much to, like it doesn't take much elbow grease to convince him. He's just like so calm and smooth, and he's got everything together. That's the way it seems, but all right,
Yeah, and
so you got the brief, you created something. When you sent the first submission to Victor, what did you want to hear from him? How did you want him to respond to compare to how he actually responded?
I don't know if you've seen, I actually posted on Instagram his very first comment when he smelt the very first. There was only one mod. You know, there was only one mod, and he liked it from the very beginning. He was
Which is
like, "Oh my,"
impressive. That's very impressive.
you know, "Thank you." And you know, I was like, "Oh, this is." I was like, "Oh, okay, interesting." It was like, "Oh my god, this smells like an Henri Jacques." I was like, "Whoa, dude, Henri Jacques, come on!" No, he's like, "No, this smells really good." And I was so proud of that moment. I decided to screenshot that exact moment and put it on what do you call it? On
Instagram?
Instagram. Yep.
Okay.
It was a very funny moment, and I loved it. It was again a very proud moment for me.
Did
I
you
was like,
feel like when you sent him the submission, it was a finished perfume?
yes,
Yeah?
yes.
How
Whenever I submit anything, oh dear,
My apologies.
that's okay. Whenever I
Technology.
technology, I know. whenever I submit anything, it has to be finished. I have to be happy with it. It can't be unfinished. Um, and then if the client, is not happy with it, yeah, go back to it on the drawing board. But touch wood, so far, thank goodness that hasn't happened.
Uh, so how have you responded to Sacred Scarab? Has there been criticism about it? And
Well,
how do you respond to do you go into those places where you could possibly be criticized? And if you do, how do you handle that? Do you absorb it? Do you take it on as your own belief, or is it just like one of these?
I I basically, once a composition is finished and completed, and once it's released, it's released. Halas. That's the way I see it. Um, I know that my compositions are not for everyone. I don't aim to please everyone. It's unrealistic, very unrealistic for me to please everyone. Because everyone is subjective, everyone has got their own taste, individual
Right.
likes and dislikes, and I totally respect that. Um, you know, and in terms of the reception for um, Sacred Scarab, I'm I'm overwhelmed. I'm very, very happy. Um, I'm I'm extremely proud of it. Extremely proud of it.
As you should
You
be.
know, yes, of course, you will have some people out there who have said, "Okay, it smells like Chanel number 5," and a couple of people said that it smells like Chanel number 5, and I'm like,
How did
Chanel
you
number
feel about
five.
that?
I was scratching my head. I was like, Chanel number 5, okay. Chanel number 5, ylang ylang, jasmine, aldehydes, okay, but
Is that a good comparison or a bad one?
no, it's a very good comparison, but I didn't see the direct correlation. The only correlation I could see is the fact that there's aldehydes in Sacred Scarab, and there's aldehydes um in Chanel number 5. That's the only correlation that I could see. Um, um, but people are, in terms of the perfumistas, in terms of the connoisseurs of perfumery, you know, uh, when they are smelling the composition, they are smelling it at, not just from the beginning, they're smelling from the start to the end. I'm listening to their comments, I'm like going, cool, home run.
It was a big hit in your eyes?
Definitely,
Yeah.
100%.
How did you celebrate the success of Sacred Scarab?
Well, I said to Victor, please, can you send me 5 bottles? And I kept 2 for my 2 daughters, gave one to my, gave one, gave each one to family member, and then took them out for a good meal. Say, look, especially my mum. My mum was extremely proud of me. You know, um, I don't think she originally, when I started my perfume journey, understood what I was doing. You know, um, even when Luca Turin gave me 4 stars and wrote about me, and I told her, she was like, "Oh, okay, well done." Just like that. I was like, "Mum, you don't realize how big this is."
Yeah, she doesn't understand the effect
You
that
know,
Lucasferian could have on somebody.
exactly. And she didn't realize. And then I was like, "Okay, never mind. It's okay." And then one day when she realized that, yeah, there is, people talking about my work, and then, you got my perfumes are in department stores, i.e., Sacred Scarab. She was like, "Oh my God, my son has done it." I'm like, "Mum, your son has been doing it for the last 5, 6 years now and trying to do it." So yeah, that was a proud moment for me. I'm like, yes, now I can relax. My mum is happy.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
After after the successful launch, you said something and it really stood out and resonated with me because I don't see it said very often or often enough, and it was your praise to God. Can you tell
I
us your
mean,
relationship with God?
it, it is, you know, I, when it comes to God, I don't have any, problems with people believing in God in their own ways. To me, religion is it should be a very private affair. It's between you and your creator. Some people believe in one God, some people believe in multiple gods, some people don't believe in God at all. You know, I'm a firm believer in, let me do what I do, you do what you do, but peace be upon you all, you know. Um, so, and by doing that, I'm trying to respect everyone around me. In terms of God and myself, it is, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm pausing because I'm trying to get the right
Okay,
words.
take your time. Take your time.
Because because it is overwhelming. The word I would use is overwhelming. How grand he is. There is one thing I realized in my 44 years is that I am nothing but a pawn. So I'm nothing but a leaf in the stream. The stream can go in different directions. And, God is controlling which way the stream goes. And basically I have to, and me by having faith has not let me down. Me by having faith has made me strong and made me carry on. And me by having faith has put me in front of the right people. Me by having faith, it has allowed me to be me, allowed me to do what I do. The best way I could describe, and I think I once wrote on my group in Facebook, was that, all these things, all these trials and tribulations that I went through in my life, let's say, for example, the Crohn's fiasco, which is one of the darkest moments of my life. Those moments, even working in Barclays, counting up people's money, people spitting at me, throwing abuse at me, at those moments, I remember, I was thinking, God, why have you put me here? Why?
Do you think it was
What
a
is my
test?
purpose?
Do you think it was
What
a
is my
test?
purpose? Everything is it's not even a test. Everything, the best word I could describe is everything, no matter how trivial, how unimportant it may seem to you at that moment, has got its place. Life, to me, what I've realized is like a grand puzzle. All the puzzle pieces have their meanings, have got their purpose. We can't see it. Sorry, we can't see it. We'll never see it. We'll never understand it, but he does. He does.
Mm.
And basically, you just got to have faith. And then eventually, one day, when you're 44, or when you're 84, or when you're 94, you look at the grand picture in front of you and you're like, okay, this is why. This is
This is
why.
why everything worked out the way it did, right?
Exactly.
And I see everything almost as a test to test your determination, to test your wanting for, your desire for how much effort and work you want to put into your passion, into your creativity. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. I mean, it's, for example, you could be doing something totally, I mean, I could be doing something totally boring and something that kills my soul, or rather, I'll be moaning, go, oh my God, this is so boring, it's driving me nuts. But little do I know that, yeah, okay, this is forcing me into a corner, an emotional corner within myself, which is going to actually help me create something beautiful. So there's positives in everything. We just got to look for it.
Right. Perfect. All right. Thank you for sharing that with us. Let's get back to Sacred Scarab. Victor and I
Uh-huh.
did a bottle exchange, and personally, I love Sacred Scarab. I loved it
Thank you.
from the moment I had first smelled it, and I realized this is a special perfume, and I had to sit down to comprehend exactly what it is I was smelling. And I was gonna say I wasn't sure if that was a submission or, but obviously there was only one and only Sacred Scarab. So, however, the second time I had smelled it, I feel like I had perceived it wrong. Now, the first time I go back to my memories of the first experience, and I remember it being very dry, almost ambery, leathery, slightly more animalic. And then I go back to it now, and I've been wearing it for several days in a row. And my first thoughts after wearing it from the bottle is, um, and I mean this in the highest respect because I hold Chanel to gold standard, gold level of standard. This feels like a higher quality les exclusives de Chanel. I get a lot of those florals, wet florals, not quite a solar floral, but it reminds me of life. I'm outdoors in the sun. I get, and I know it's based off of a blue lotus. I don't know what lotus smells like, but to me,
Yeah.
it is very evocative of a jasmine. Slightly white floral elements, very, very, very small white floral. It's more green. I get much more of a green, jasmine-y, rubbery fungal iris in there, which kind of brings me back to maybe an ylang. I don't know. Is there ylang in here?
Touch,
Okay,
smidge.
right. So that is my connection to Chanel. And I don't know if that was done on purpose or not, but I get a lot of that, like a higher quality Chanel Les Exclusive, but it doesn't really remind me of a specific Chanel. I don't see the comparison to number 5, but I
Mm.
do see like some of the elements that Chanel would use in their perfumes. I get a lot of that, and I absolutely love it. It is deep as far as the eye can see,
Good.
and um it like I connect to perfumes um in a feeling sort of way. I don't really care what they smell like. What they smell like has less relevance to me than the feeling they put out. And when I wear this, it makes me happy that perfumes like this are still being created today.
Thank you. Thank you
You're,
so much.
you're welcome.
No, you know, to be honest, when I created Sacred Scarab, I didn't envision, I didn't think about any existing compositions. I'm, to be honest, to be frank with you, whenever I create a composition, unless it is a tribute to a composition that used to exist a long time ago, I won't focus on any other reference, if that makes sense. Apart from, I will just focus on the composition that I'm creating. Sorry if the way I'm wording is it doesn't sound right. Um, so yeah, when I create Sacred Scarab, I didn't really envision or think a bit about any other composition. I was just thinking about the Sacred Scarab composition itself. So the first part for creating Sacred Scarab for me was to create the base, the Kefi base. And then when I created the Kefi base, I had to think, right, okay, I've created the Kefi base. It smells quite winey because Kefi has quite a lot of wine in there to help bind together all the resins. What will go well with the wine? And then I realized, hold on, okay, the scarab beetle looks like a peach, it looks like a plum. Okay, let's create a plum accord. I created plum accord with the kifi, and then I thought, yeah, but it needs something else on top. It needs a flower. And then I thought, right, what is a very ancient Egyptian flower? And then I realized it was blue lotus. And then started another adventure. The other adventure was trying to discover what blue lotus smells like because it's such a rare flower.
It's a flower that
Eventually,
grows in shit, isn't it?
in
In the worst conditions, in swamp-like
I
waters.
believe so. I believe so. Yes, and it's a very rare flower. Very, very rare flower. So then I was scouring around, different sources, trying to find the Blue Lotus Absolute or the essential oil. What I received were disgusting or basically just synthetic mishmash. And a couple of people, primarily I would name Joseph Delat from Rising Phoenix. He had a couple of absolutes and also an essential oil distilled by a very reputable, legendary distiller Jake Chapman. Who he sent me the samples, and also a few other people kindly sent me samples of Blue Lotus Absolute. So I then sat down studying all these absolutes and essential oils, writing notes in how to recreate this, as an accord. And so when I was smelling the essential oil, when I was smelling the absolutes, I realized that, lo and behold, beautiful thing about this is there's a winey, fruity element to this flower. Great, perfect. It fits in with the base that I've made already, based on the plum. Okay. Then I've realized there's a jasmine element. There's almost like a green, swampy element facet to Blue Lotus. But the key element to me, which I loved about Blue Lotus was that wine-like element to it.
Right.
And it gave, so then I created an accord, tried to recreate an accord to accurately, in my opinion, to mimic what I have in front of me in terms of the Blue Lotus references. And then I finalized on the formula for their accord, added their accord to the now plummy Kifi, and then after that I added the final touch, which is the sunshine, because Victor wanted it to have some sunshine, because Sacred Scarab is found in a very hot country, ancient Egypt and Africa. So I thought, okay, what is brighter than aldehydes? So I added the aldehydes and the lemon, and
It,
ta-da! Sacred Scarab is
it's
born.
it's a beautiful balance of floral and mossy woods in the base. There is a touch of that fruitiness I can sense, but it never surpasses a sweetness level that I can't tolerate. I love it. I just love wearing it.
Thank
It's
you,
a beautiful wearing experience. It's very joyous, and
thank you.
um,
I mean,
I think
the
it's
thing is, with Sacred Scarab, I wanted to tell a story, and
there's a touch of vulgarity, just a
yes,
touch. Like it
yeah.
never really, it doesn't morph or get out of control, this vulgarity. And that doesn't come out until later on in the dry down.
You know why I did that? I'll
I'd
tell
love
you
to know.
why. Because it's zoologist,
Right.
and because there's a dung ball. So I didn't want the whole composition to smell like poo, but I thought, right, okay, there needs to be a bit of vulgarity in there. Add some civet, and there you go.
Yeah.
So
I can sense that, but it's not evident right from the top.
yeah,
You got to sit with it. You got to give it some time, and it does show. But tell us about, there's going to be a Sacred Scarab attar. What is that all about? And what are you going to do differently, or what can you do differently in the second release? Because this
Well,
isn't extrait de parfum. So
yeah.
what will the
In
next one be? An attar?
in in terms of the Sacred Scarab attar that um, Victor will be releasing hopefully next year, it is exactly that. Is I mean, the formula for Sacred Scarab is finalized. So the attar is going to be is basically what you have in the spray. But however, the dynamic is different. Because the dynamic of an oil is different to that of a spray. You know, a spray is much more. It's very. Sorry, I can't say the word properly. Voluminous. You know, it's full of volume, whilst an attar is much more concentrated and much more focused.
Denser?
Yeah, dense. That's the word. Denser. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at words. Um,
You're doing great.
thank you. So, in regards to the oil is much more dense. So, because of its density, you'll feel it's being a bit more animalic, and the amber and the incense will be a bit more pronounced. The formula is exactly the same. It's just that because it's an oil form, the dynamic, the way it evolves will be different. And the aldehydes you'll feel the aldehydes to a lesser extent. Um, but in terms of the second project that Victor has put me in charge of, oh boy, that's going to be a doozy.
So that's zoologist number 2.
Zoologist number 2. So in terms of the attar part is already, is part of the Sacred Scarab. That's going to be released next year. But the second composition that I'll be doing for Victor is a very interesting one. And again, just like Sacred Scarab, I'm fully immersed myself. I'm fully immersing myself with this project as well. It's a bit like method acting, when you method act, you fully immerse yourself into the character. Same thing I'm trying to do with this one. But with this one, it is interesting because it's quite, the word I'd use is quite kinky.
Mm. Mm.
Mm,
Mm.
mm.
Sounds like
Yeah.
a perfume enthusiast's dream. Like, we all like to wear something unique and original, and the stranger and the more bizarre, the more we're drawn to such things. But when can we expect to see, our first glimpse of this?
Really and
And I
truly,
get that great things take a longer process to create.
with regards to this second composition for Zoologist, the problem has been thus far, finding the right materials and amassing together the right materials. Because I wanted all the correct materials for this project to work. And it's only very recently that I received the final material. So I'm basically, it's, in terms of the mod, it is I would say 30% ready. So there's another 70% to go. So I'm sorry, Victor. Please forgive me if you're watching, but you know what I am like. Hello.
And
um,
lots of coffee.
yeah, he's probably going, okay. I'm like, yeah, okay. No, I'm
So
sorry. No, but yeah, it's 30% there. So yeah, it will be a while before Victor talks about, mentions it.
right. So I'm a big fan of Victor's. I love Victor. I've known Victor for many, many years. I love what he's doing. His brand is probably one of the most creative out there right now. Testing, very testy, doing great things. And I'm glad to see that you guys have been able to connect and create beautiful perfumes. And I'm excited for both of your futures. But do
Thank you.
you have a desire to kind of spread out and work with other brands coming forward? And if so, what brands would you love to work with? Just to
Truth
put you
be
on the
told,
spot a little bit.
that's all right. That's okay. That's okay. No problem. Truth be told, I there. there are few, there. Blah blah blah. Sorry, I hate this when I talk. My brain goes. "Zoo." Anyway, truth be told, whilst I was doing the Sacred Scarab, I was collaborating with my good friend Janne von Reimer, the owner of not Zoologist, of Visiteur. So I created a composition for him, which he'll be releasing hopefully in 2023. Um, then since then, after the release of Sacred Scarab, I have taken on three new projects, with three new, not new brands, but three other brands.
Mm, okay.
So for me, I would say it's always a pleasure for me. I enjoy it. I enjoy working with other brands as much as I like doing compositions for myself because it's a challenge, number one, not in a good way, because it pushes me to come out my shell and come out my comfort zone and expose myself to more materials, new materials that normally I would not have used because I'm possibly focused on, you know, my own brand and in a specific genre, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I like working with other brands a lot because, yeah, it brings out my comfort zone,
Yeah.
and it's enjoyable. It's an enjoyable experience. It's an adventure. So yeah, so I've got three more brands that I'm doing for this year. Um, and I'm always open to work with other brands. In terms of if a dream, there are a, d- a dream collab for me. I have two, actually, no, three. I've got three. One would be to do something, let's say, for Amouage.
Okay.
I love Amouage a lot.
Are you listening, Amouage? Are you listening?
Yeah, I would love to do something for Amouage, especially because their oils, the attars, are very close to my heart. And if you remember what the story I told you about tribute, it's what really opened my mind and made me
That's
realize
right.
I can do what I'm doing now.
Right. Everything comes
Um,
full circle.
exactly. So Amouage, another dream collab for me would be something. I would love to do something for Frederick Mahl. You know,
I'd love to
um,
see that.
I would love that. I would love that. Just to push the boundaries. Because I'm finding that lately the compositions are a bit too much in a comfort zone, if that
Very
makes
safe.
sense.
They're very
Too
safe.
safe,
Too
too
safe.
safe,
I agree with you
too safe.
fully.
And the third brand, and this I don't think will ever happen, but inshallah, who knows? Who knows? You never know. Golan, I love Golan. Golan. I wish, I wish. I've got such a huge Golan collection, especially of the vintage, you know, and they taught me so much, So yeah, that would never happen, but
You never
I'm just
know.
saying.
You never know.
You
And
you
and and
asked
your
me?
your words are manifesting it right now. And words are very powerful, and sometimes they come to life. Just keep dreaming and believing. I believe in you, Sultan. This has
Inshallah.
been a super interview. It has been beyond my wildest. I never expected this.
Hey,
Thank you so
hey,
much for opening up, for being vulnerable and
ah,
courageous. I enjoyed every single moment of this, as I'm sure a lot of our viewers have.
before I go, can I ask you one thing? Because you were saying about my talking about emotions and feelings and opening up. I have one last favor to ask you.
Absolutely.
Number five, the fifth one, the fifth spray. Have you smelt that before?
I have not. Visiteur?
Visitor.
Okay.
Tell me what it evokes. And with this one, I want you to smell it from far and near. From far and near.
It's fresh.
Uh-huh. Now smell it up close.
Oh, it's sharp and deep. Slight. Is there something wet? There's something very wet and fresh in here.
Yeah.
Something biting.
This is the composition that I created to
Slightly
describe.
fruity.
This is the composition that I created to describe depression.
Mmm. Whoa.
Yeah. So that's why, because it relates to what we were talking about. That's why I wanted you to smell that and try it.
Interesting.
The
Interesting.
whole idea. The reason why I want you to smell from far and then near is the whole idea that a person who's depressed, clinically depressed, may seem okay outwardly, but once you get to know them, get close to them, you realize, oh my God, they got the whole weight of the world on their shoulders.
They carry that energy, that very heavy energy that's evident when you are healed, when your body is healed, you're much more aware of this energy, which can be invisible if you're in pain yourself.
Yeah,
But everything is energy.
yeah. So, and this composition, you know, gets deeper and deeper and deeper and stronger as time goes by. And because the whole idea again is a person that it goes through depression feels like it's never ending. They feel like it's a downward spiral they can't get out of. And
Mm.
then this is possibly one of the strongest compositions I've made. And when I say strong, I'm talking about in terms of its physical strength. And I did that because I wanted this composition to last over 24 hours on a person's skin. Because depression is not something that goes away, So, and then, you know, after 24 hours, when you wake up the next day, you realize that area where you sprayed it, it smells like muguet. It smells like a
Lily.
fresh spring day.
Lily of the
Uh,
valley.
Lily of the Valley. The whole reason I did that is the Lily of the Valley to me is a sign of hope. When it comes to perfume, it's fresh, it's beautiful,
But it
it
also
is
grows in darkness. It thrives in darkness.
exactly. So, and it's beautiful. And so therefore, it's possibly one of the most poetic work I've done. So do look out for it, people. That will be, yeah,
And that is
coming soon.
called Visit Tour.
Visitor is the name of the brand. The composition's name, I can't tell. I can't say until Yane releases the name of the composition. But
Perfect.
it is all I can say is to do with drowning.
Oof. Drowning in your thoughts. And I
Yes,
found, I've definitely dealt with that darkness that you're going through. And I found, to me, it was just a pattern of thoughts and being stuck in those thoughts. And there is
exactly,
hope for anybody out there that is suffering from the same thing. My
exactly.
greatest um I want to be careful with my words. My greatest help has been meditation, which has allowed me to escape those thoughts and realize none of them are real. They are perceptions that have been projected on me from society in the forms of the relationships I've been in, the friendships I've been in, the media that I consume, perhaps religion, perhaps politics, perhaps my workplace. But in meditation, I have been able to observe my thoughts and realize where they come from, and know that the only absolute truth is this present moment that we are all connected to. And when you pull yourself out of that moment and go into those thoughts, you separate yourself from God and you're
Yeah,
left all alone.
yeah.
Sultan Pasha, I love you.
Thank you.
Thank
Same
you
here.
so
Love you,
much.
brother.
Alhamdulillah. I wish you
Alhamdulillah.
all the best going forward. You are welcome back at any time.
Thank you. I look forward to it. But thank you for today.
Thank you so much. This has been my absolute pleasure to have you here. Guys,
Anytime.
thank you, everybody. Just a quick reminder, Bellam, again, is launching tomorrow morning, and you'll find this on lesupstoday.com. Thank you to everybody. Have a brilliant day.
Take care.